is Julie Volpenhein, and I am a health sciences librarian here at the Medical Center Library. And today we're going to be talking about Web of Science essentials. So kind of the basics of Web of Science. I do go into some of the details of their how they like to index things and everything. We're going to start off just kind of going over it in the slides, and then we'll hop into a demo of it as well. So Web of Science is an interdisciplinary research platform that provides access to many scholarly databases covering the sciences, social sciences, and arts and humanities. Web of Science includes journal articles, conference proceedings, symposia, seminars, reports, colloquia, workshops, and more. So Web of Science has a lot of information in it. Looking at these numbers, they have over 34,000 journals indexed in this database. There are over 3 billion citation links to help you uncover related research. And the research extends all the way back to 1864. So a really rich resource of information. With that, each database is different. So Web of Science has some strengths and some weaknesses. So I think one of the strengths of Web of Science is it's really great for finding unpublished works, or at least unpublished in the way we tend to think about it. A lot of databases have this focus on peer-reviewed scholarly works, and those are great and very needed, and Web of Science has those as well, but they also have other types of information like policy documents or reports. Web of Science can be very easy to search if you just kind of need a basic search of a topic, and they've recently made this even easier, which I'll show you. There's also a wide array of outputs in one search. So I mentioned all the different types of documents that they have. You can do one search and receive, maybe all of those coming back. So it's not just, like I mentioned, those peer-reviewed works. There are lots of options for filtering in Web of Science. So if you have your search and maybe it's too many articles or not exactly what you need, you can kind of adjust it. It's also interdisciplinary in nature. So this can really be a strength when you want to look at a topic from multiple different areas. I'd say the majority of databases are subject specific, which can be really helpful, but sometimes a topic really needs to be looked at from multiple different views. So I kind of covered the scope of Web of Science, but one example I was just reading about that, it was talking about the building of dams in India. And that is a topic that people say, that is a very interdisciplinary topic. It has ties to the history of colonialism. It obviously relates to engineering, environmental health, public health. So searching for that topic in Web of Science is going to bring you a lot more information from different viewpoints than maybe searching just in PubMed. And then also Web of Science offers some level of citation tracking. So you can see an article and you can also see how many times it's been cited. And this is because Web of Science is run by Clarivate, who also runs journal citation reports. So they already do a lot of work in some of those bibliometric aspects. So a lot of the weaknesses kind of tie back to the strengths. One weakness is that Web of Science is kind of, the overarching database, that's what we call it, but it has many other databases inside of it. So you can kind of choose which of those you want to search. And so for some people that might feel overwhelming. Similarly, because of its interdisciplinary nature and also how many different types of documents it has in it, there can be a lot of results for a single topic. And then, if you're in a sea of information, it can feel also overwhelming to try and find the exact right one. So knowing how to use the database is really important. And then lastly, Web of Science doesn't have subject headings in the way a lot of other databases do. In other databases, each article is going to be indexed to a specific topic about what the article is about. And Web of Science does something similar. I'll explain to you all, but it's not quite the same. Drink some water really quick. So the first step to using Web of Science is obviously finding it. If you haven't used it before, don't know how to get to it, it's really easy. You can use this link for the health sciences databases that should pop up in the chat. Or, if later on, maybe you've lost the link, I recommend bookmarking it. But if you haven't, you can just type in UKY MCL Health Sciences Database and this page pops up. And then you can just scroll to the bottom and it will take you to Web of Science that it's alphabetical. So just, this is the page, and you scroll down and it's right here. So clicking on that should bring you to the home page, or it might make you log in first if you haven't yet. So you're welcome to follow along now or in the demo. And then this is the home page. So once you're signed in and everything, this should be what we're all looking at. There might be some minor differences because Web of Science now wants you to kind of create a Clarivate account that works for all of their different resources. But generally it should be the same no matter what. So kind of going through these stars, I'll go over what's on this page. So first you can toggle between your smart search or your advanced search. Use smart search maybe for more basic searches, and advanced search for when you really want to target a very specific topic. Here, you can toggle between just the Web of Science core collection, which is sort of a designated list of indices, or if you want a larger search, you can look for all the databases that Web of Science has. This is the main search bar here. And then on the bottom left, both of these features, the latest alerts and recent searches, you have to sign in for. And I do think it's worth it. So if you have signed in list, it will keep track of all of your recent searches. That can be really helpful if you are, maybe if you've done a search and a few days later, you're back into Web of Science again, and you just can't find this one article, you are missing a keyword. You can just go into this and it will show you all of your searches. So I use it pretty frequently. You can also set up alerts for searches that bring up information that's relevant to your work, your research, and it will just automate as new articles are added and saying, hey, this is relevant for you. So we're going to go into each of these in a bit more detail. So this Web of Science Smart Search, this used to just kind of be a basic search bar like what you see in PubMed, which allows you to use like Boolean operators to create a search, but they've actually made it now using AI. It lets you query using natural language. So you can type in your research question, and from that, it will pull up articles for you. You can also search using Boolean operators in here. I will say I find using the advanced search feature a little easier when you're using Boolean operators, but that's cool. It will also have suggested keywords pop up for you as you type. So this is something else I like to use. Using keywords is really important in searching because not everybody's going to say, or describe a topic in the exact same words that you might. So I like to use this as kind of an idea generator. And another thing to note is that it automatically searches this core collection. If you want to switch it, you can click on all databases, but those are your only options for this page. So back to the home page. If you want to do a more focused search, which is where we'll be spending a lot of our time today, you can click on this advanced search button here. And that brings us to this page. So this page allows you to really focus in your search in different ways. First off, it lets you use field tags saying, maybe I only want to search in the title, or I want to find this specific author. You can also select which indices more specifically you want to search. So maybe you do want the core collection, but you don't want all of it. You want specific indices in there. And I'll talk about those in a few slides. So use this page when you really want to do a precise search. So this is the article record. This is just one example of an article in Web of Science, and I wanted to bring this up to show you the different fields that exist before I talk about field tags. So we could choose to search just by, what is in the title here or what's in the abstract. And so if we choose that, then Web of Science will only search in those fields of the record. Another example are these author keywords. So if we wanted to search for, let's see, environmental justice, that is a keyword that we could look for. But it's important to note that we're only going to see articles that the author chose to use that exact phrase to describe their article. I think that there's lots of different ways to talk about environmental justice without using those phrases. So you probably will miss articles, but sometimes you don't need all of the articles. And then there's also this Web of Science categories. One thing to note with this is that I think whenever I first saw it, I assumed that this was kind of their subject headings. They were saying, that this article was about civil engineering and water resources. And that, could be true, but I've learned these Web of Science categories are actually assigned to the journal, so not the article. This does not necessarily guarantee that this article is about civil engineering, just that the journal tends to cover that. So this is a screenshot from that advanced search page of just the filter. So you can click on this drop down and you see a lot of different options for these field tags. I'm going to go through some of the more commonly used ones. I tend to stick with topic for the most part. Topic searches, I believe, title, abstract, and I think maybe keywords, but we'll double check when we're in the demo. So that does a pretty good wide range. If I want an article about a certain topic, it will most likely, not always, have that phrase in the title, abstract, or keywords. So it's a good bet. You could get more narrow to those author keywords. Just remember what I mentioned about, make sure that you're using synonyms if you do that route. You can do it by title, by author. You can even do it by publication titles. So if you only want articles about a certain topic, but only in these journals, that's a way that you could search. There's that Web of Science categories I spoke about. There's also Keyword Plus. So those are different than your author assigned keywords. This is given by Web of Science, an algorithm that they've created that looks at what articles you've cited. And then it does a scan of all of your cited articles to see what words are most mentioned in those titles. So it's a different way of indexing. It's not looking at the article specifically. So, it could vary in its level of accuracy. And so this heading is wrong. This is not about field tags. I did want to explain a little more about these databases. So Web of Science databases, there's, a lot of databases in there. More specifically, there are those core collections, but you can also select from those one of these or a collection of these specific indices on that advanced page. So I just want to give you a bit of a graphic to understand that. But this is what that looks like. So you can click, there's search in Web of Science core collection editions. If you click on all, it will do a drop down of these different indices here. So choosing only the ones that you're really interested in can also help narrow your results really effectively. Maybe you don't want conference proceedings or book citation indexes. You only want scholarly articles. So you can click on these other ones that exist. If you aren't totally sure what it is, Web of Science does a really good job of letting you hover over different features and it will tell you what it is in more detail. But as a little cheat sheet, for peer-reviewed health sciences materials, I typically recommend Science Citation Index Expanded and Emerging Sources Citation Index at least. And if you're wanting conference proceedings, their citation index for conference proceedings, Science is also a great resource. And so there are those other databases that are not in the core collection, and some of them are really helpful. So some ones that I find really interesting, they have a grants index, which allows you to search for grants that have been awarded, a policy citation index, dissertations and theses, and a preprint citation index. So that preprint one would be really great for some of that more cutting edge literature. It hasn't usually yet been peer reviewed, but generally will be published. And then again, this is the article records. We already talked about some of the fields, but just before I go in, I wanted to point out too that on the right-hand side right here, Web of Science does keep track of those citations. You can also click here to say the 49 cited references in this article. And then if you want to view it, that's very important. I almost forgot to tell you how to view an article, but it is right up here, view now, or full text at publisher. And then there are also ways to export or save the article. So I'm going to demo those right here. So if you haven't already, you can go to Web of Science through that link that we had put in the chat a little bit earlier, or there's this QR code if you have an iPad or anything like that. But we can go ahead and start demoing the database. Okay, so this is that home page. And just as a reminder that these will not pop up for you unless you have signed in. And I do recommend creating an account. It does make your life a lot easier. I've cleared out my search history just for, ease. And then also it has articles that will be recommended for you down here. Before I cleared out my history, they were a huge range because, a big part of my job is helping other people find their research. So I thought that was kind of funny, but it will probably be more specific for you. Okay, so I want to show you this search bar. Normally, if I were searching a topic, we're going to kind of demo water security and anxiety. I would type in water security and anxiety. And so just as a note, if you'd like to learn more about searching, we have a lot of cool webinars about how to search more specifically in databases and former and past research workshop series that we've had. And we have a link for that page as well if you want to check out what else we have. But this is using Boolean operators here. So if I were to search for that topic, I have 19 results, which is actually, fewer than I'd expected. But the other way you can search for this topic here is to ask, what is the relationship between water security and anxiety? And that typo was not intentional, but I'm kind of glad it happened because, well, it's supposed to fix your typos for you. They say that they do, but let's try this again. Search. Okay, so now we see 17 results. So it is important to note that it depends how you ask the question. I asked this question in a couple different ways as I prepared, and I would get like small variations in the number of results each time. But it has a similar number of results. So again, this is great if you just need a very basic search. You don't need it to be that specific. And I think it does kind of lower the barrier somewhat to, getting started with a database like this. So you can also do that search, let's say not just Web of Science core collection, but all databases. I'm actually going to pull that from my list of recent searches. And then if we're looking in all databases, all of a sudden now we have 37 results. So at this point, I'll go over some of the filters that are available before we get into the advanced search. But let's say you only want review articles, that's there. They also have open access available. I will say I don't tend to use this one because UK has access to more than what is just available through open access. And then you can select what specific databases you're interested in. A lot of people like to look for more recent literature. So I'll show you that as an example. You just click refine. And now we're down to 16 articles in the last 4 years. And there's a lot more down here. So if you have any questions more specifically about these filters, please let me know. As we do some more narrow searches, actually more filters will pop up here. So now we're going to go over to that advanced search and we're going to kind of play around here with an example of a search that we'd like to be a little more specific. So for this one, let's look at the relationship between substance abuse and exercise. So this is still a little basic of a search, only using 2 keywords for each, but it's getting a little more specific. I'm using this asterisk right here that captures alternate endings, and that's pretty much true in almost all databases. And so this will search for activity or physical activities or exercise. Actually, we'll do that and we'll catch exercising, exercises. So let's search this way. And I want to go back to Web of Science, core collection. Okay, so we have 645 results. Now, for me, that kind of feels like a lot of articles. So we have some options here to narrow down, or we could even broaden it more if we'd like. But you'll see some more quick filters than what were available before. One of them I always like to look at are these highly cited papers, just to kind of check out what they are. They're usually smaller in numbers. But you'll notice these have a lot of citations here. So I think that is a fun one to look at. If you ever want to clear a filter, you can just go right here and exit out of that. One I didn't mention before is there are different document types you can filter by. So let's say we only want articles, review articles. We don't really want preceding papers, but we'll take book chapters. You can refine that way as well. And then, kind of keep doing it until you feel like you get the topic that you're interested in more specifically. So there are other ways to kind of modify your search too. Maybe you want to not search in the title, abstract, and the keywords, but let's just do author keywords and see what happens. And again, anytime you do this, you will miss out on relevant literature, but it is a good way of narrowing it down. So yeah, 41 results. That feels like a much more doable start to the topic. Let's see. Another way you can change in here is by selecting more specifically where you want to search. So in this case, let's stick with Web of Science Core Collection, but let's do Social Sciences and Emerging Sources Citation Index. So that's 510. So we've lost about 100 articles or so by narrowing that in. And that is looking a little smaller. So, and you can continue filtering as needed. So we're going to stay on this page for now, and I want to show you, let's say that you've read through some and you're just kind of looking at the title and the part of the abstract that's shown, and you want to save these articles. So this is another thing that you have to be logged in for, but you can create marked lists. So I'm going to create one. I'm just going to call it Web of Science Demo. Create a marked list. And so this is a way you can save articles as you're looking through them. And then later on, if we're in an article and you're like, oh, I want this one as well, you can just say add to marked list on the top right here, scroll down and click on the correct list. To see your list later on, you can click right here to your list of all of your marked lists. And then they're saved here for you. So that is a feature I actually just started using recently, but I've found it really helpful. We're going to go back. We'll just go to advanced search and refresh this. You'll notice here, I also like that this will let you know whatever articles you click on, which I find helpful. Another way of saving articles that you're interested in is that you can export them. So let's do just a random selection of them. And you can export them in a variety of different ways. So if you aren't using a citation management system, you can email them to yourselves. You can create an Excel document here. If you are, it does have options to go directly to EndNote, which is really nice. Or you can download it as an RIS file. EndNote uses those I think all of the citation management softwares do. So that is your other option for saving them. Now let's go into the record a little more. So I've already told you that all of this exists, but I just want to show you there are a lot of fun features with this citation aspect. You can click on the 44 citations, and these are 44 documents that have cited the article that we were looking at. I think that's a great tool for finding articles that may also be relevant for what you're looking at. Alternatively, if you want to look at the references that they've cited, you can click here. So these are the references that the article we were looking at cited. Go back to the record. Okay. And then one other thing I want to mention, this is journal information. So these are metrics on the journal that the article is published in, if that is something that's interesting to you. And then, great. So I think this is everything I wanted to show you for, searching for article level. I'll pause just for a second to see if we have any questions, and then I'll go into the researcher searching section. Okay, awesome. Well, I'll just keep going, and if you have any questions, you can pop in right here and just let me know. So the other thing that Web of Science offers is searching for researchers, or if not for researchers, you can also search for organizations or author identifiers. So if you have an ORCID ID, which is kind of an ID given to you as a researcher to keep all of your information correct. Maybe if you've changed your name for whatever reason, you can kind of keep all of your research in one area. So you can search that way as well. But let's search for organization. And let's search for our friends over at the University of Louisville. And so it's kind of a similar thing. You know, obviously there are a lot of people at the University of Louisville who have published and have had their works end up in Web of Science, but you can filter more specifically. If you're looking for people who are doing similar work to you, you can look for them by these Web of Science categories. So who has published in journals that focus on immunology? For 5. And now we have 1,056 results here. You can sort by relevance or individuals who are newer to the field or at least have published more recently. And then there are many other ways you can look as well. And then we'll just click on this individual. And this is what the author profile looks like. I do recommend too that you claim your record if you haven't. This kind of lets you be in control of your work and if any changes need to be made, and it will keep track of all of your citations, all of your articles. I will go ahead and say there are differences between these different databases, like the number of citations you've received in Web of Science may be slightly different than what's shown in a database like Scopus. And that's just because these articles have differences in indexes. So, okay, well, I'll stop here. Actually, I've shown everything I'd like to. We have lots of time, so I'd like to answer any questions, but if you want to see, you know, some of those other databases I mentioned, I'm happy to demo those. Or if not, go back here. And you're welcome to email either me, that's my email, julie.volpenhein@uky.edu, or our library email, mclib@uky.edu, with any questions. So that is all I have. Do you all have any questions for me right now? Okay, well, if you don't have any questions, then we can call it a day. And thank you so much for being here. I'll kind of hang out here in case any questions come up. But that would be it for this webinar. So thank you so much.
And if you have a moment, please fill out the evaluation survey.
Yes, thank you.